I pulled up just as my pregnant wife, Sarah, was thrown to the ground by a woman in a visor and a glittery HOA president sash. Sarah crumpled to the sidewalk, her body twitching as sparks flew from the taser prongs lodged in her shoulder. My police chief badge was still pinned to my uniform, my Sarah VYC weapon holstered, my cruiser's lights flashing blue against the pristine hedges of this cursed neighborhood. Yet somehow, Linda, the HOA president, had the audacity to meet my gaze and declare she was trespassing. That was when I realized she had no idea who I was. But she was about to find out. Sarah's scream tore through the summer air like a blade. It wasn't just any scream, it was raw, primal, as if every fiber of her being was crying out in pain. I leapt from the cruiser before it fully stopped, sprinting across the street. Neighbors were already gathering, some horrified, others filming on their phones. Sarah lay on the pavement, eyes rolling back, fingers trembling. The taser barbs were still embedded in her shoulder, and above her stood Linda, panting like she'd just won a marathon. She gripped the taser in her shaking hand as if expecting a standing ovation. When she saw me kneel beside Sarah, cradling her head and checking her pulse, Linda's eyes widened. Then they narrowed as she noticed my uniform, not just a cop, but the chief with citywide authority. She blinked, then launched into theatrics. She attacked me first. Linda shrieked. She was loitering near the clubhouse. I felt threatened. She was tying her shoe, I said, forcing my voice to stay calm as I radioed for an ambulance. And she's 8 months pregnant. Linda opened her mouth to argue, but the crowd's murmurs turned against her. Phones were now pointed at her, and that HOA sash wasn't helping her case. Paramedics arrived within minutes, carefully lifting Sarah onto a stretcher. One of them placed a hand on my shoulder, saying her vitals were stable. I nodded but couldn't tear my eyes off Linda. She still hadn't dropped the taser. I approached her slowly like she was a cornered animal. Put it down, I said, my voice low and tight. She was trespassing, Linda repeated, her voice wavering. No, I said, stepping closer. You have a delusion of authority, and that ends today. She dropped the taser. It clattered on the concrete. The crowd watched in silence as I radioed for a unit to detain her. There was no hesitation. This wasn't just assault, but assault with a weapon against a pregnant woman in public with witnesses and video of a evidence. Officers arrived, cuffing Linda as she sputtered. I was protecting community standards. You'll regret this. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Every resident watching had just seen the real Linda, power-hungry, irrational, dangerous. As Sarah was wheeled into the ambulance, I climbed in beside her. Her eyes fluttered open briefly, and she gave me a weak smile. Did she really say I was loitering? She asked. I almost laughed, but the sound caught in my throat. She did. But it's over now. It wasn't over. Not even close. The hospital kept Sarah overnight for observation. No serious harm to her or the baby, thank God, though her shoulder would ache for weeks. That night, exhausted and still simmering with anger, I went to my office and pulled up the HOA's public records. Linda had been president for 3 years, and complaints against her had skyrocketed, some petty, others chilling. Citations for wrong flowers, fines for excessive garage door use, even an attempt to ban lemonade stands for unsanctioned commerce. But this wasn't just about her. It was about the system propping her up. I dug deeper. HA newsletters mentioned a community patrol initiative, vaguely described as a safety measure. Budget records showed purchases for tasers, pepper spray, even body cameras, buried under recreational enhancements. Linda wasn't acting alone. She had enablers, possibly a board that saw nothing wrong with arming themselves like suburban vigilantes. The next morning, I requested all neighborhood security footage. Residents shared Ring doorbell videos privately. One clip showed Linda creeping towards Sarah, taser drawn with no provocation. Another showed her smiling after Sarah collapsed. The most damning showed her practicing with the taser days earlier, zapping a cardboard cutout labeled rule breaker. I compiled everything. This wasn't just assault, it was premeditated, and it targeted the very idea of decency. At work, my deputies were abuzz. The incident had gone semi-viral after a neighbor posted the video. Local news ran it. HOA president tasers pregnant woman over sidewalk dispute. Linda was trending and people were furious. But I knew outrage could fade without consequences. At home, Sarah sat beside me, her arm in a sling. She looked tired but resolute, holding my hand tightly. She said I didn't belong here, she whispered. Before she tossed me, she said, "People like you don't belong here." Something in me snapped. I'd suspected this was more than paranoia, but hearing it confirmed ignited something fierce. "This isn't just about us," I said. "She's been doing this to anyone who doesn't fit her vision of this place." "So what do we do?" Sarah asked. I looked at her at the sling at the bump where our daughter kicked. "We take her down legally, publicly, and make sure she can't do this again." Sarah smiled. "Good. I want front row seats when she realizes who she tossed." I launched an internal investigation into Linda and the HOA. If there were more patrol members, I wanted names. If funds were misused, I wanted receipts. This wasn't vengeance, it was duty with a hint of poetic justice. By sunrise, I was at City Records, coffee in hand, sifting through HOA documents. Linda had built an ecosystem of surveillance and intimidation. The community patrol had recruitment emails, invoices for tasers and uniforms, and a mission statement about reclaiming neighborhood sanctity from disorderly elements. It was underlined 3 times. Her method was fierce, subtle, not overt. Question the board? Get fined. Resist citations? Your lawn gets flagged. One couple painted their porch blue and got reported to child services for negligence, despite HOAing no kids. They moved out soon after. The HOA budget hit a slush fund under beautification and deterrent tools. I called my friend Rachel, a forensic accountant. Within hours, she texted, "You're sitting on a goldmine of corruption." Her audit uncovered thousands funneled into a security enhancements account, paying fake vendors and a shady company selling non-lethal deterrence kits, pepper spray drones, night vision binoculars. Linda had built a militia with residents' dues while hosting bake sales for community spirit. She hosted wine and watch nights to review EW security footage claiming safety. Really, she was monitoring who stayed out late, who had guests, who broke her unwritten rules. It was dystopia in HOA letterhead. I cited a listed vendor address, a vacant lot with knee-high grass. Linda had paid it due law $12,000. Rachel confirmed the EIN was fake. Now we had wire fraud and tax evasion. Sarah, healing at home, reached out to other women. Linda had targeted young women who didn't fit her respectable mold. A nurse got fined for non-existent weeds. Another faced tie-in threats when her son played music. Sarah compiled a list of 9 women ready to speak out. They were scared but emboldened by Linda's overreach. We held an unsanctioned community meeting at my cousin's gym. Over 100 showed up, sharing stories of keyed cars, torn down flags, and absurd fines. One brought screenshots of Linda's watch group chat. Another showed a map where Linda color-coded homes by risk. It was a smoking gun. That night, an officer sent a photo, Linda on her lawn, handing an envelope to a patrol volunteer at 10:17 p.m. By morning, the man was gone, no address, no trace. Hush money or threats, it was another crack in her wall. Rachel's full report detailed 30 pages of fraud. I sent it to the city's legal team and the DA. An investigation opened. Linda would soon learn the woman she tossed wasn't just my wife, she was the spark that would burn her kingdom down. In court, Linda sat defiant, her too-tight blazer straining as she faced felony assault charges. Her lawyer, Greg Vinton, a smug HOA defense expert, claimed self-defense, calling Sarah a suspicious figure loitering. The judge, unimpressed, cut him off. A pregnant woman tying her shoe was a credible threat? Greg faltered. The judge's glare could have shattered glass. I testified, describing Sarah on the ground, taser prongs sparking. Doorbell footage showed Linda's unprovoked approach. The courtroom winced as Sarah fell. It wasn't a reaction, it was deliberate. Linda's arrogance faded. Fear crept into her eyes as the video was admitted. Then came a surprise witness, Tom Harris, former HOA treasurer. He'd resigned quietly but now testified about Linda's off-book spending, tactical gear, tasers, surveillance pressured by her claim, "We run this place, not the cops." The courtroom tensed. The judge ordered a financial audit expedited. Later, a nervous patrol volunteer, Mike, handed me a flash drive. It held emails, videos, and a standard engagement protocol, with pseudo-military terms like target posture. Mike said Linda called certain residents problems, ordering surveillance on out-of-state plates. Taser training involved silhouettes labeled vandal or agitator. It went to the state's legal office, suggesting conspiracy and civil rights violations. Someone slashed Sarah's tires. Hooded figures with HOA badges were caught on our cameras. I requested state protection for Sarah and the baby, granted instantly. The HOA board unraveled resignations, denials, panic. Residents questioned old fines and foreclosures. Linda's countersuit for defamation flopped. Public opinion had turned. At the next hearing, the judge dismissed Greg's attempts to discredit EVY Denke, setting a trial date and barring Linda from HOA active VY ties. Momentum was our not VY Tory but progress. This wasn't just about Linda Anna Maria, it was about dismantling her system. The neighborhood grew tense but hopeful. Some residents avoided eye contact. Others spoke openly. Linda's grip was slipping, though loyalists lingered. I met with state investigator Lisa, who revealed messages from Linda targeting residents with coded bigotry. Keep our kind in control. Charges loomed: racketeering, harassment, possibly hate crimes. We held a community safety night. Nearly 100 attended, sharing violation letters and stories. An elderly man spoke of Linda threatening foreclosure over Christmas lights. A map surfaced color-coding risky homes. It was gold. Linda's house saw odd VY Cider's private security types. Rachel uncovered a vacant lot. Linda bought VYAA Shell LLC, not for recreation but a personal bunker. We found it at dawn, a concrete shelter with riot shields, drones, and response gear. It was absurd. Karen's private fortress funded by HOA dues. We seized it. Warrants followed. Linda was rearrested for fraud, conspiracy, and tampering. Neighbors watched as she was cuffed, yelling about keeping this place safe. No one bought it. At home, Sarah sipped tea, smiling as news coverage played. The nightmare was fading. Board members confessed, handing over incriminating messages. The HOA leadership dissolved, replaced by an interim council. Audits began, fines were reclaimed, and a neighbor spray-painted the HOA kiosk. The watchers are watched. That night, Sarah woke me. "It's time," she said, hand on her belly. At the hospital as dawn broke, she gave birth to our daughter Lily. It was perfect life amid chaos, strong and new. The final hearing was packed. Charges piled up. Assault, fraud, conspiracy, surveillance. Linda pleaded not guilty, but her fire was gone. A witness revealed she'd hacked residents' Wi-Fi for monitoring. I spoke of Sarah's scream, our fear, the retaliation. Sarah stared Linda down, holding Lily, her strength louder than words. Linda got 7 years, parole after 4. Silence followed the gavel, no cheers, just closure. The neighborhood bloomed again: bird feeders, decorations, real community. Sarah's article, "Toss for Tying My Shoe," went viral, sparking a coalition and a bill for HA oversight. I stayed chief. Learning power needs checks. We stood on our lawn, Lily sleeping, Sarah's hand in mine. Kids biked, birds sang, normalcy returned. A neighbor offered us advisory roles. I didn't need it, I had safety, truth, and them. Linda's name faded, but her case shaped law books. We were still here, stronger. She tossed the police chief's wife, not her best move.